This is the solution video for section 8.2, problem number 29. All right, so find the volume generated when x squared plus y squared equals 1 is rotated around x equals 5. Give the setup only, right? So this is setup only. All right, so now we have to come up with a graph of x squared plus y squared equals 1. So you should recall that this is actually a circle of radius 1 centered at 0, 0. Remember, this is like x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals 1 squared, right? So like 1 is the radius, right? And HK, the center of the circle, is 0, 0, right? All right, now sometimes we would give this equation in y equals form, right? And so if I solve for y, I'm going to get y equals plus or minus the square root of 1 minus x squared. Now we do need that because if we're going to integrate, right, we're going to need this to be in the appropriate form. All right. All right, so let's see. So let's draw this graph. All right, so circle centered at 0, 0, radius 1. So obviously looks like this, right? So we're going from left to right, from -1 to +1, from low to high, -1 to +1. All right, and we're going around the line x equals 5. So that is a vertical line, right? So here's x equals 5. All right, and we're revolving around that. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to use a dx rectangle, right? Dx is perpendicular, sorry, parallel to the axis of rotation. And so that means I'm going to need my equation in y equals form. Now, it's important to remember that we've got the y equals plus or minus. So remember, the plus is the top half of the circle and the minus is the bottom half of the circle. So it's actually two separate equations. All right, but now because the dx is parallel to the axis of rotation, we're going to use the shell method, right? All right, and so that means I'm going to take 2 pi times the integral of radius times height, and then with respect to x. All right, so now the radius. All right, remember that the dx is x units from the y-axis, and 5 would be 5 units from the y-axis, right? So how far is the 5, x equals 5, from the dx rectangle? Well, that would be 5 minus x. We take the right-hand thing minus the left-hand thing, right? So 5 minus x would be the radius. All right, what about the height? So now the upper boundary is the positive part of the square root, right? So we're going to take the positive square root of 1 minus x squared and then subtract the negative part, which is the bottom half, which is the negative square root of 1 minus x squared. All right. And so now if we have the positive square root of 1 minus x squared minus negative, remember that would become a plus. So I have the positive square root of 1 minus x squared plus the square root of 1 minus x squared. So there's actually 2 root 1 minus x squared as the height. All right. And now we're integrating from left to right. So that means we're integrating from -1 to +1. Right. And so really, this is already kind of cleaned up. So we have 2 pi times the integral from -1 to +1 of 5 minus x times 2 root 1 minus x squared dx. All right. And so that is problem number 29.